All right, all right. Live, we are live. Thank you all for tuning in. Aki Ami, the Success Scholar. Thank you all for tuning in. We are broadcasting live this evening on the Raising Capital page. Thank you all for tuning in here. A little bit behind, but we're going to keep this thing going. But I have a wonderful, wonderful guest joining me here this evening. We're going to have a discussion on uh, the history of the Black paper. Brother, he is a publisher and has been a publisher for 40 something years to tell his story. But I'm going to, open and we discussion. I took some notes on some of the historic roles of some of the different newspapers, but I let Brother David Murphy himself, and then I'll some of these different things that will allow his story of his publishing journey, as well as work that he started in the industry. But brother, what feeling today, my brother?
Yes, how you doing? You were kind of breaking up on me as you were speaking, so I didn't really get to hear everything you said. But I do know this that you were speaking of. Some of the historical facts that we can talk about. With Black
Right.
newspaper, and I am a publisher of the National Black Unity News. And I go back a little longer than you said. I go back 40 something years,
No,
really.
I said
So I've been
40.
a, yeah, I started around in the 70s and stuff.
Right.
So and it was started out with a publication called The Informer.
Mm, okay.
And and brother Hakeem, man, first and foremost, man, I know we had some difficulties, but I appreciate you having me on your broadcast
Right.
because
Right.
information is power, and it just so happened we speaking about media, black media,
Right.
and we really had a rough time even from the inception of it here in this country. Uh, Frederick Douglass. I've got the two owners of the first black publication. I
But
can't think of their name.
let me go through some of that I got.
Yes,
Like
yeah, yeah, do that, and then we can go from there.
so, so the interesting. The first one was the Freedom's Journal. That was in New York. That was in 1827. That was John Rushmore, Samuel Cornish, and that was like
Right.
7 states. It was in D.C., Haiti, Europe, and Canada, and that was instrumental in the American Colonial Society, which was uh, the movement to repatriate many of the slaves back to Liberia, and so that was documented, and that was documented as the original one. So, and coming up a little later towards the Civil War, according to many statistics, there were about 40 of them hitting Civil War. But most people, and I know even myself, we think of black newspapers, we think of the North Star, and that was
Right.
Frederick Douglass, and that was a part of the abolitionist movement. And they got up to a circulation of about 4,000, and that was in the West Indies, Europe, and the U.S. as well. But principally, it was more of a agitation propaganda operation towards the abolition of slavery, of course, as well as um, the recruit of black to fight for the union. So in Douglass, he had like four total papers throughout his period. Some of the bigger ones that I sort of was partially aware was the Chicago Defender, and that was a little later towards after Reconstruction. That was 1905, and that was big for World War. And they called it weekly, uh, and a subscription outside of Chicago. but they were for uh, voting the up north. A lot of people down south during that time, the 1900s, early 1900s. Many of them were lynched and eager to get out of the South. So, and it was pushed in the early people were like in the early 1900s. Later on, Gwendolyn Brooks, H.G. Wells. I didn't know this. Ethel was considered the first link of the press. So I didn't know. And you know about the Pittsburgh Hurricane was really well and that was 1907 up to 1930s. It still came along big. I think Pittsburgh was industrial, so I could see how historically, like how Baltimore. Somebody just said I had. So let me turn this down. Thank you. I'll say thanks. That's best I can. Oh, I think I need the whole thing on here. All right, I'll fix. So later in the 60s, there was Muhammad Speaks. Well, before Muhammad Speaks, and I tried. One's got the circulation. One got up to 300,000, up to 950,000 in one. We did that like one. And many people know the Black Panther paper, and I think that was their circulation about 500,000 at a particular time. So those are some, just two of the major steps. Oh, I get the Garvey paper. So now perhaps one of the widely 30s, and so during time, so more of but those are some of the major papers that. But go ahead, open it, brother. I'm trying to echo into what how it began in.
Well, you gave a very historical fact about how we had, African Americans started out in publication and the journey that we've been through all the way up to modern times. But even when they first started, most of the slaves could not read. And so just like we used to do in Africa, our ancestors, they would have people to read, or back in the day they had storytellers. That's what if you want to call it, scribes and everything else that would explain the history or what was going on with the tribes and stuff. But even back in slavery, when most of the people couldn't, they had some of the people who could read. They would read the papers in the barbershops. They would read them to people in the churches and things like that. And but you're right, most of this stuff got started up north and migrated to the south because the south was a little bit more stricter with communication. But yesterday they did what they had to do, and throughout our history, in spite of the retribution, because one time we wasn't supposed to read at all. In spite of all of those things, we still was able to communicate with one another. And unfortunately, during the time we made great strides. We have right now, presently, over 200 black newspapers. And we still going up pretty much the same system because things have progress has moved so swiftly. Now, the things that was happening yesterday to us, they had to deal with them. But the things that I want to really speak about, it's good to know where you've been so that you can know where you're going. But the things I want to speak about is that when historically we were sharing information, a lot of great things happened. People got to know who the activists were. They connected their resources together. They did all of these things. They built colleges. They built hospitals. They did all sorts of things because of this communication fact, how people were sharing the word. But current time, present time, most of those things has been taken away or given away from us. We don't have. I don't think we don't have any hospitals left that actually ran by us. I don't think we have built any more new colleges, from scratch or anything like that. I don't think we have done too much when it just comes just us doing things for us. And of course we up with new modern technology. It's so nanotechnology and everything else that is systematically used on us to keep us from communicating with one another. The same way they used to try to stop us because they had to sneak the paper to the South. And the same thing is still happening today with just a modern, systematic, modern way of doing it. Even the internet, when we have expression where everybody can go on there and say this and say that. But then again, of course, when everybody's saying this and saying that, don't make it factual. But because what it does, when you got a lot of information come from so many resources, it causes nothing but a lot of confusion. And a confused mind usually don't do too much. And so, but because of this technology, these people had trained themselves, educated themselves, how to keep us from communicating from one another. They took our brightest and our sharpest and put them on their jobs and put them in their institutions and working for them. And even though we have the communication, we had the John Johnsons, the Black Enterprise magazines, who done exceptionally well during their time, as far as subscriptions and putting the word out, letting people all across the country know. Because even as a little boy, I used to flip through the pages of Ebony and Jet magazine, and just because I was just amazed to see us in print media. It was amazing to see that in my own time because mass media, you didn't see us, period. And even till this day, major corporations now, they will give a few crumbs here and there, but they never have, or I don't think they ever will, really support black media. Because, like I say, institutionally, systematically wise, it's not wise for them to help us to the game, so to speak. So
Yeah.
I just want to share this before, we start dialoguing on this. And even Brother Haki, man, even to this day, I heard you mention earlier that we have organizations. We got national this, we have national that, and I built a website called the National Black Action Portal, where I highlighted quite a few black national organizations. We even have a National Black Newspaper Association. And most of the black papers are listed there. And then there's a couple other sites that highlight the history of black newspapers. But again, the information that we have is still kind of a dollar short and a day late now because of the new technology, because of the internet. By the time things get to print, this day and time, it's old news. They done toss it all on the internet and major media done spit it out there, and in time we get it because we still doing weeklies, bi-weekly, monthly. Even my publication is quarterly. But the type of information I put in my newspaper, I'm wise enough to know that the information we put in there is good for yesterday, today, as well as tomorrow. It's a different type. We're not what you call general newspaper, the way that they normally are set up. But unfortunately, and I have to just make it say, I know you're a man like truth. You don't want to be driving around. People need to know the truth. Unfortunately, most of our newspapers are kept. They're kept by a few major organizations out there, a few businesses, commercial businesses, and most of our black publications not supported by black people. Because oftentimes the race, the advertising race is just a little too high for the average black business to get a return from. And 90, I believe over 95% of white business do not support us. I'm talking about anybody business do not support us, period. And so most of our black public, if you look at them, what sustains them is corporate America. And therefore, when you are being surviving off of that, so therefore you can't say but so much.
Right.
Because they all sit on the same boards, and you don't want to upset those that are feeding you. But they do try to slip things. They are clever enough to slip some things in to hip us to what's really going on if you open your eyes and if you read deeply enough. But most folk, like I say, most folk people don't do that. And so we come a long way, but we still own less than 1% of the media. In the 60s, the 50s, we had more media and press going around. And I think even when you talk about the Panthers, the Jets, the Ebonies, the Black Enterprise, all that was operating pretty much around the same time. And they were doing, and people was moving we was moving at a swiftly pace then. But then, by systematically, all has been shut down. Because too much information, like I said, you don't really hip somebody to what's really going on, who's doing what, and how they doing it. Because a person like myself, like I told you, when I was a little boy, I used to look through the papers. I used to see some of the major singers, but I also used to see people like Emmett Till. What happened to him? You saw what was going on in D.C., and you also saw who was getting lynched too in those publications that happened in certain areas and stuff like that. So it was shocking. It was great on one end and shocking on the other end. But see, news is news. The truth is the truth. These are the things that was going on. And so I think, be straight up about this, a lot of effort has been, was put in to shut a lot of this media down because too much information was getting out. And just as you see now, the same result is happening with these cell phones. A lot of information is getting out now. Things that have been happening from ever since we've been here. The lynching, the mobbing, the abuse that black people go through, that's been going on. It's now that it's being recorded. People catching it in real time now. And it's still hard after all of them things that we actually see with our own eyes. Very few things happen behind it, and so for you having this subject matter, people really need to really look at media. You see what you're doing is so extremely important because media covers a lot of areas: TV, radio, podcasting, newspapers. But it's a lot of voices out there. But back in the day, they had a pipeline, so to speak, where they connected to one another. And the word, what happened, we would, on a collateral voice sometimes, we would hear these things and would take action. Because we had, man, our job is put on us. Because we even had the organizations to back the papers up back in them days. We had the activists, we had all the calls, we had all of these national organizations that when the media put something out there, they took action behind it. And so now most all of that has been all of that stuff has just been, put aside now. So everything that's coming to us, except for voices like yours and mine and the few others out there, we own less than 1% of the media to this day. So everything that we hear, we read, the information we get is coming from outside resources.
Mm.
even to the food we eat, the clothes we wear, what's hot and what's not. And even in our school systems, as you already know, they don't teach us how to survive. They teach us to be in servitude mode. You go work for us. Come work after you finish your school. Come work for me. They don't teach you how to be entrepreneurs or
Mm.
how to deal with money. And so a lot of things we had digressed in so many different ways, but yet when the doors are open, this is what they did find out. Once them doors was open and we enter in, we excel. And they knew then it's a dangerous thing for them to have equality. Because it will be detrimental to them for their own sake. So that's why it's systematically from media, business, and everything else, school systems, educational systems, everything else. And I keep saying they because the truth will set you free.
Right,
And
right.
and we have to look at things open and honestly, And so that's why, even though I'm in media, even though I'm speaking to you now, I'm being monitored. I've been monitored for over 35 years, just because I have potential to reach
Right.
people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, yeah. So you mentioned a few things, and no, you're absolutely about. Um, you mentioned how advertising, trolling, like Bob Jones, and it said that they agreed that his that it would turn into Malcolm X show. That's what they said during that. So yeah, it was interesting.
Mm. Yeah, and so now a lot of things, a lot of us, like I say, because we learn how to do, we always know how to do things for ourselves. There's all types of documents. You have been involved. There's all types of books and material. But as you already know, that you're a reader. You study. You get involved. But the more you study, the more you read and everything, you see for yourself what's taking place. And you see for yourself what you have to do to overcome the society that you're living in.
Mm-hmm.
You know who you have to be around. You also know that you have to stay alert for those who look like you too, act
Right.
like you. It's a lot of things that because of greed, because of fear, because of a lot of things, but a lot of things are planned. It's planned that way to keep us going against one another because, that's always worked the house in the field.
Mm-hmm.
That always worked divide and conquer. To have and have nots.
Wow.
And the light skin gets dark skin. Any little simple thing that would do things that will separate us. But one thing is for sure that I'm so proud of. Even during them days of real difficult, you think we had it hard, having it hard now, but can you imagine what our grandfathers went through, grandmothers went through? You know how they separated us, how they did, but yet they were determined. You could even get lynched just for reading, but yet we had people who wanted to learn. We got one people running away from schools. Right there, they were sneaking high, risk their lives to learn.
Right.
And now here we have it, and we have libraries all over the place. I know you're an advocate of this. Your library's full of stuff in it, and it's open up to you.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is enter the doors, or open them books up, and study for yourself.
Right.
You ain't got to take that person's word for this. You can come to your own conclusion. But I tell you what I did, because I seen it firsthand. I was refused at a counter. And I knew that there's people that, I would be almost like on a hit list because the field that I was called to do. I ain't say that I decided to do. I was called to do this. I believe that
Mm-hmm.
because I lived it and I seen it because I always had that. Because like I said, I used to open up the magazine, just look. I was very curious, And then my father was an educated man, and he's the one hit me to it the most. He had 2.5 years of college back in the 40s. Now, that's almost like a doctorate degree today. But yet, for all of his wisdom and skills, and he was a man who could do things. He came from the farm. He can build. He can grow. He could think. He could do it all. But they had him cleaning out toilets.
Wow. Wow.
He had 7 and 8 children, so he had to be humble and submissive. Even though he would hurt him to his heart, but he had to put up with it and then come home. That's why he was mean sometimes.
Wow.
And that's why he ended up being an alcoholic.
Yes, sir. Yes,
He
sir.
told me these things. We had to talk about them things, and when as I got older, he said, Dan, I asked him why, because he left, my mother left him when I was 11 years old. And as I got older, he was an adult, and him and I had a long talk, and he told me the pain and struggle. And come to find out, I pretty much went through some of the same things and almost came up with the same conclusion. It hurt me to my heart, the things that I seen, the things that I witnessed. I used to have a job, Brother Haki, I'm serious, and I understood, but I used to, I dropped out in the 7th grade. I ain't ashamed to say it, but I went back later on and got GED, but I went to work because I seen the lack, so I went to work. I went after the money. I didn't rob nobody. I worked for it. But I used to work in a restaurant, and there was an elderly lady. She was around my age. Matter of fact, a few years younger than me. She probably was in her early 60s. And it was only 5 of us working this little right on Pratt and Light Street, a little thing called Quickie Restaurant. It was a little teeny back in them days. And this lady, we had I was a dishwasher. We had Mrs. Catherine she was the manager. She operated the cash register. We had one waitress. Her name was Joyce. She was around 25. And the elderly black lady, she was the cook, did the cooking. That's all that was there. But Joyce, this is in the 60s, black power, everybody, women's rights movement, and college campus going up. So, my bush growing out, and this lady, every time and Joyce told me, the young white lady, she called me Dave, and I called her Joyce. And we was cool. It wasn't no problem. But guess what? That lady would get so upset with me. She used to pull me. One time, she grabbed me in my chest. You call her Miss Joyce, because that's what she called her, Miss Joyce. And she's a woman. She ain't no older than But she would get upset because back in her day, if you would have did it, she called herself helping me. But to me, it was so disrespectful to me personally, because I'm revolutionary, But in her day, I would have got strung up for that, for disrespecting a white lady. And so she called herself. My grandfather was the same way. I used to work with family. No, you call him Mister. And he was mad with me too. Call him Mister. Young boy my age, And I was angry at my own people because of that. But at the same time, as I grew older, I understood why they acted that way, because it was life and death in that time. And even now, see, because of conditioning, and I'm talking about propaganda, is one powerful tool. And media, the major it's the blood flow of propaganda media. And that's what has been leashed upon us. They not only go after each other, the drug community, the movies they make, the clothing, me, myself, even the rappers, the me, myself, and our attitude. I got mine, you get yours. All of that stuff plays into our psyche. I see it in my own children. Me, mine, it's about me. And these are the things, the attitudes we go ahead, brother.
No. So we'll have to do a part 2 for this. I have Woodlawn High School anniversary. So let's
Yeah,
close.
congrats. Yeah. I heard you mention it the other day. Yeah.
Like at least mates. Um, but can you just your contact information? Appreciate you and
Yeah, I
your
understand. Okay, yes, it's David Murphy, publisher of the National Black Unity News. And I can be reached at 443-455-2373. Again, David Murphy, 443-455-2373. And the website you can find us at is www.tnbun.com. tnbun.com. And you can go to my page and you find a lot of information about me and what I do. And I thank you, brother, man, had much love because me and Haki go back a long way, and he been a soldier ever since from day one. And I appreciate you, man.
thank you, my brother.
I don't know if you seen my flyer, but you was on there. I'm talking about people who've been putting in work for 15 years or more.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and so keep up the good work, sir.
All right, brother.
All right, and tell your classmates, man, that you still here, you still doing your thing, man. All right, take care, man.